Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Today, the Prime Ministers of the Visegrad Group of countries, Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic and Slovakia, met in Bratislava. The meeting was an opportunity to summarise the last year of cooperation as well as to discuss the most important challenges facing the countries. Our reporter, Alexander Woyak, was there.
The Prime Ministers discussed current challenges to the region's security, economic issues, and energy security. Today's summit was also an opportunity to discuss the country's position on the issue of migrant relocation ahead of the upcoming European Council. The V4 countries have risen to the challenge of accepting war refugees, and that is why today such a topic that unites us very much is also the approach to migration. We show very clearly that it is the external borders of the European Union that should be protected, that you can't support smuggling organizations, people smugglers, because it is absolutely immoral, and that you can't support terrorist organizations at the same time. I refer to one of the recent reports which indicates that some non-governmental organizations have been defined in exactly this way. We do not agree to any quotas, no allocations of migrants, and we articulate this very clearly, that Europe must have mechanisms to defend itself against external migration. This is a problem we don't have to close our eyes to. We see that the number of immigrants coming to Europe is not decreasing. All the countries of the Visegrad Group believe that these imposed quotas will not solve the problem. They cannot work. We also jointly believe that return policy and the protection of external borders and cooperation with the countries of origin of migrants must be dealt with. We talked about Russia's aggression in Ukraine, but we do not want this problem to become the main topic of the Visegrad Group. We also talked about migration. Hungary's position remains unchanged. If someone wants to come to Hungary, all procedures related to submitting an asylum application must be completed in such a way that it must take place outside Hungary. Only with a positive assessment, you can enter the territory of Hungary. We also talked about the prospects for Ukrainian grain transit corridors, and we are convinced that a solution should be sought together. The meeting of the Prime Ministers of the V4 Group was a kind of summary of the last year of cooperation under Slovakia's leadership. From the 1st of July, the Czech Republic will take over the presidency of the Visegrad Group. From Bratislava, Alexander Woyak, Republika TV.
Earlier today, Moscow residents were both unnerved and unfazed less than 2 days after Wagner mercenaries called off their mutiny. The armed mutiny over the weekend by the powerful Wagner Group and its abrupt ending with no apparent penalties for the perpetrators or their leader was followed by other official moves to return the country to normal. Meanwhile, Wagner private military company co-founder and leader Yevgeny Prigozhin delivered his first statement on the reasons for the Wagner Group mutiny and the decision to abort it.
I'm absolutely calm about this situation because everything was quite predictable. So, in this situation, when we are aware and constantly monitoring the news, everything can be predicted. Nothing has changed. No worries, nothing. I knew that our government would sort everything out. I look at things calmly and confidently. I didn't know what the result would be, but I was sure the outcome would definitely be positive. Why? Because there's no other option. I think some changes will come, both radical and more pinpointed changes. But they will happen, of course, because you have to react somehow to all of this. If you don't, this might happen again, or it might not. Everyone is speculating. Everyone is confused. We need to understand exactly what is going on. We need someone to explain to us what is going on exactly. I'm nervous, yes, because the situation was unclear. I was worried, but we didn't lose hope that the situation would get back on track. Russia's National Anti-Terrorism Committee said the situation in the country was stable, and Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, said he was cancelling a counter-terrorism regime imposed in the capital. Wagner mercenaries fighting in Ukraine who crossed into Russia on Saturday halted their advance on Moscow, withdrew from the southern Russian city of Rostov and headed back to their bases in the evening, under an amnesty granting them safety. Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, who had demanded that Russia's defense minister and the army's top general be handed over to him, would move to Belarus under the deal mediated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Prigozhin, who has accused both men of gross incompetence and corruption, said he wanted to restore justice. Earlier today, Prigozhin said that a one-day mutiny by his Wagner force had been intended not to overthrow Russia's government, but to register a protest over what he said was its ineffectual conduct of the conflict in Ukraine. None of the Wagner Group fighters was forced to take part in this march. Everybody knew its final goal. The goal of the march was to avoid destruction of the Wagner PMC and bring to responsibility those persons whose unprofessional actions caused a huge number of mistakes during the special military operation. We stopped the moment when the first assault detachment, which came to within 200 kilometers of Moscow, deployed its artillery, did a reconnaissance of the area, and it became obvious that a lot of blood would be shed at that moment. Therefore, we felt that demonstrating what we were going to do was enough, and our decision to turn around was based on two important factors. The first factor is that we did not want to shed Russian blood. The second factor is that we were registering our protest and not seeking to overthrow the government of the country. In the audio recording, Prigozhin did not address any of the questions still surrounding the agreement brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko that brought the mutiny to an end. The Kremlin said on Saturday that the deal had included dropping a criminal case against Prigozhin and his moving to Belarus. Prigozhin, who was last seen in public being driven in a sport utility vehicle out of Rostov-on-Don on Saturday evening, did not say where he was when he recorded his statement.
Other countries, including the United States and China, have been reacting to Saturday's apparent coup attempt by Prigozhin. According to the Institute for the Study of War, support from the Russian army for the rebellion turned out to be less than had been expected by the head of the Wagner Group.
This is clearly, we see cracks emerging. Where they go, if anywhere, when they get there, very hard to say. I don't want to speculate on it, but I don't think we've seen the final act. This has been a devastating strategic failure for Putin across virtually every front, economic, military, geopolitical standing. There is absolute unity, both of purpose and in action, in terms of supporting the Ukraine, making sure they have what they need to defend themselves.
The Wagner Group incident you mentioned is Russell's internal affair. As a friendly neighbour and comprehensive strategic partner of coordination in the new era, China supports and believes that Russia can safeguard its national stability to achieve development and prosperity. China and Russia have maintained close and sound communication at all levels.
It's more important than ever to continue supporting Ukraine, because what has happened during this weekend shows that the win against Ukraine is cracking Russian power and affecting its political system. We are certainly following closely what's happening, but it's now the moment to continue supporting Ukraine more than ever, and that's what we will do. And the monster that Putin created with the Wagner.
In business, as regime changes,
You have to be careful what you wish for, and I said the same thing before. I'm not in the business of regime change, but in the business of supporting Ukraine and its struggle for sovereignty and territorial integrity. There is a big difference between those two. Russia is the biggest, or one of the two biggest nuclear powers on the planet. We can't be indifferent to what is happening there, and that has to give us all pause for thought. But at the end of the day, you can always put it down to the fact that Vladimir Putin let the evil spirits out of the bottle, and now those evil spirits are chasing him.
Geister, ist dem so.
With this brutal war of aggression, Russia, Putin, is destroying his own country. We see the lingering consequences of the Russian war of aggression also on Putin's power system. We see that Russia's leadership is increasingly fighting back, and we see massive cracks in Russian propaganda.
Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki visited soldiers and border guards on the eastern border with Belarus on Sunday, a day after the aborted mutiny by Russia's Wagner mercenary group and the announcement that Wagner commander Yevgeny Prigozhin was to move to Belarus.
Speaking by the fence in Krynki, built last year on the border with Belarus to curb the flow of illegal immigrants, Prime Minister Morawiecki said Belarusian and Russian leaders could do strange things, and Poland had seen such strange actions in 2021. And we saw it yesterday, and we've encountered it by monitoring and chats with leaders of other countries that Lukashenko and Putin can do strange things that we and our NATO allies have been conducting various analyses and research on. The events in Russia from yesterday and the night before show that everything that is happening there is characterized by a high level of unpredictability. We don't know, and no one in the world knows, what were the real reasons behind the events that ended late evening yesterday on the way to Moscow. The Wagner Group's march, the march of Prigozhin's soldiers, and the upcoming weeks will probably show us. In late 2021, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko was accused by the European Union of orchestrating the influx of migrants to pressure it to back down over sanctions slapped on his government. Nearly 40,000 people from the Middle East, Afghanistan and Africa tried illegally to breach the border from Belarus.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.